Now, you said you've done shows before.
I have done many podcasts from, like, I've been a guest on podcasts from my kitchen, if that makes sense.
During COVID?
Like remotely? No, I mean, like anytime anyone has asked me, it's usually just like we'll get on a Zoom and podcast and whatever. I've never done an in-person podcast. I've been on TV. I was on a show called Money and Impact.
Okay.
And I do regular content, professional content.
To this day?
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about that quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, money, you said Money and Impact?
Yep, it's a show on RICC-TV.
Okay, what is it about?
It is about impactful people and finances.
What do you touch on?
So my particular episode, I touched on not being financially ignorant. Mm-hmm. So I feel like this happens a lot with women, right? The American dream for a lot of women is to grow up, get married, have a family, and hopefully be able to be a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. Well, I did that, and my husband was the sole earner, and I really let him just take care of everything. And I never thought anything of it until he fell off our roof and got a traumatic brain injury.
Oh my God.
And I didn't have a password. I did not have a password to a bank account.
Make a note, give wife all the passwords.
Not only that, give your wife all the passwords, certainly. And he wasn't withholding them from me. I just, he took care of it. So I just let him take care of it. And I took care of the house and the cooking and the kids. And that was his department. And I knew he could be trusted and pay our bills. Sure. And he was trustworthy. I never discovered anything crazy. I discovered that I couldn't pay a bill, and I didn't know how much money that we had, and he couldn't tell me. He had a severe concussion. He was in CCU for 10 days, and then he went to rehab. And once he kind of was starting to regain his marbles, he was very confused. And it took a while for me to access those things. But not only that, I had no idea if we had enough insurance. I had no idea if we had life insurance or how much we had, or if it would sustain us if he didn't, if God forbid something happened and he didn't make it, or if he could never work again. I had no idea. It was like, think about your most comfortable day, right? Mm-hmm. You don't think about these things. Everything's great. And then boom, everything's not great. Yeah. And now you're in dire straits. And now you have all these questions that can't really be answered. Yeah. So have passwords, have them in a safe. Both spouses should know where they are. Everything should be transparent. Even if your spouse just wants you to take care of it, make them sit down and look at your finances so that they, it's irresponsible almost to be ignorant about it. Right. And that was my bad. Yeah. Once I finally did get into our finances, we were okay, but I did discover that, we were a little short on insurance for sure. So at that point, we went to the financial advisor at our bank, and he crunched numbers with us to determine how much life insurance we would need if one of us passed to replace the other's income.
What's that like? What, like, emotionally for you at that time when you're going through all this?
I was wrecked. Our baby was 8 months old. I was trying to figure out how I was going to take care of my husband when he came home from the hospital and take care of an 8-month-old baby. And do the back and forth to the rehab itself was like a full-time job. Mm-hmm. So a rehab for somebody who is seriously injured is just at an old folks home. It's at a nursing home. So I was driving back and forth to Beechwoods in New London, and trying to arrange care. And these things don't just happen one at a time. Right. So of course my husband fell off our roof. And then when I got home from the emergency room, we had no heat. Our furnace blew.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then it was just kind of like a cluster. And we got through it, but emotionally it was terrifying. And then when I realized he was going to be in the hospital for such an extended period of time, I was like, well, what about money? How do I pay bills? Are things on auto pay? How am I paying the mortgage? How am I buying groceries? How am I doing any of this stuff? Like I just really didn't know. And that was when I was in my mid to late 20s. And after that, I got fiercely financially educated. And I started reading all the usual books like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. And I got super into money after that. Yeah. And I also got super into my own independence. And ultimately, that's kind of how I ended up becoming a realtor years and years later. But I knew how important it was for me to not only be able to stay home and take care of our kids, but also have an income. I firmly believe, and I wasn't always a believer in this, that both spouses should have an income. Not necessarily always simultaneously. Like there's always times when a spouse like maybe isn't actually working or earning.
Sure.
Because, you know, daycare might be an exorbitant cost or whatever the reason. It might just be better financially. But I always found a way to earn money and be at home and raise our kids. So at one point I had opened a daycare and I was running a licensed daycare out of my house. Once COVID hit, that was like...
Oh, so it's recent. Like,
oh, yeah. So I only became a realtor during COVID. That's when I became a realtor. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep, I'm a COVID realtor, and I am not ashamed to say it.
You're a successful COVID realtor.
Yes. So I am not new to sales.
Yeah.
Sales started when I was 14. I started at Kirby Vacuums, and I was doing telemarketing at 14 years old. I was just trying to find a job that I could walk to. And this seemed stupid easy. It was, I'm going to age myself by saying this, but it was in the classifieds of the newspaper. Back then, the newspaper
here in Connecticut
was paper.
Yeah, not digital. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Here in
I miss
Connecticut.
those days a little bit, the old school newspaper. Anyway.
Yeah, here in Connecticut, I lived across the street from Waterford High School, and I needed to be able to walk from my house to my job because I knew my parents weren't going to give me rides and stuff like that. Plus, in my family, I also knew that financial independence was the ticket to freedom. You know, I didn't want anyone to have a hold over my money or, you know, ultimately I was going to be buying a car and I didn't want it used as like a punishment tactic.
Sure.
So I knew I had to pay for it myself. And I also knew, like, you know, money is kind of power, which, you know, at some point when I became kind of an ignorant partner and a financially ignorant housewife, I'm like, how did I get here? Because I always knew that money was the ticket to independence, freedom, anything you could think of. So anyway, I pounded the phones at Kirby, and I got a 10% commission if the salesperson that I booked the appointment for sold a vacuum.
How much were those vacuums back then?
Like $1,200.
So you get $120 if you sold one.
Yes.
Wow.
So I was making like $500 a week as a 14-year-old in the 90s.
$2,000 a month?
Yes.
14 years old?
Which was a ton of money.
That's a lot of money.
And it was simply because pounding the phones is, you know, kind of a guerrilla sales tactic. It's old school, but it's reliable.
Yeah.
It was by sheer numbers. I would just pound the phone. I would get the yeses. I would listen to 1,000 rejections. People would say wild things to me, which I always got a kick out of when I was a kid. Like, I remember I called this one house, and this woman was insistent that I was the person that her husband was having an affair with. And she just kept saying, I know who you really are.
Oh my God.
Stop playing games with me. I know who you really are.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So stupid stuff like that. And it never felt like rejection, if that makes sense. Like, I think I was just too young to take it personally.
Right.
Like, I didn't have that capacity yet. Like, it didn't feel personal to me.
Sure.
So I did a lot of it, and I was their top telemarketer there for a while.
At 14 though, right? That's crazy. So
Yeah.
At 14, what was I doing? I was at the Drop-In Learning Center, I think. So I wasn't doing sales, but you know, I like being around kids and helping and whatnot. But I never thought about pounding phones. And I saw those ads too,
Yeah.
15, 16 years old, you can, make X dollars, call us and whatnot. But I never really felt the urge to do that. For you, at 14 years old, because you mentioned something to me when we first met, that you were alienated from your parents at that age.
Yeah.
Right. How did that have anything to do with it?
It was the control factor. So I didn't want my parents or my grandparents to have any control over me financially. So if I was, if I was going to be punished, I didn't want them to have a car that they bought that they could take away from me. If it was mine, they couldn't take it.
Right.
So that was a factor. And I also knew that I would be moving out of my parental situation the very instant that I could.
Yeah.
And I did end up doing that fairly soon after I graduated, like within the week or two that I graduated high school. I moved out with friends and got my own apartment. So I knew that I was going to need money. But for me, for Kirby, I didn't think about the pounding of the phones aspect. It was like, cool, I can walk here.
Yeah. Listen, whatever makes it easy.
Yeah, and I knew that I was going to be making minimum wage plus commission. I didn't know what commission was at that time. So to me, I was like, oh, I might get a little extra money. They kind of had to explain to me what commission was. Once I realized that commission has no ceiling, I was like, give me that phone book. And it was, back then you called out of the freaking phone book. Yeah. So I had a book this thick of just names to call and call and call. And that's what I did. And back then people answered their phones.
How long did you work for them?
I believe like a year and a half. I think a year and a half. And then I moved to Pennsylvania, back to Pennsylvania to be with my grandparents. And then this was my first real estate gig. I got a telemarketing job selling cemetery plots.
Oh my goodness. So what's that like?
Well, it's easier than you think it would be because demographically where I was doing that is like a highly Catholic area. So those people want to secure their final resting place. So it was the same as Kirby. My job was to get people in the door.
Yeah.
So once I did that, if they purchased, then I would get a commission.
So you're basically at 14 in this, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but you're almost in the survivor mode.
I've been in survivor mode my entire life.
Why? Like, if you don't mind me asking. Like,
no, I don't mind. I think, number one, I was born to teenage parents who, through no fault of their own, really didn't know what they were doing.
Sure.
And then I had a narcissistic grandmother that was kind of driving a wedge between me and both of my parents, but specifically my mother. I have always been the outlier of my family. I've always been different than everyone else. I feel like I'm the only truth speaker in my family. And ultimately, I think that, that causes a certain amount of fight or flight. Not only that, I feel like living with and being raised by my grandmother was almost like a psychological war ground.
Sure.
She did a lot of very manipulative things that would be confusing to a child, and I really had to find my own way.
Was it just you and her, or did you have any siblings that were with your grandmother as well?
So she raised 4 kids of her own, and I'm 9 years apart from her youngest. So from my aunt, I'm 9 years apart. We were raised in the house together for a little while, but, she's 9 years older than me. So I was my grandmother's main focus at that point. But I couldn't do anything right. So, from the minute I would wake up to the minute I would go to bed, my facial expressions were analyzed. Everything I did was scrutinized. There was always a problem with everything I was doing.
Sure.
I could never do anything right. And it got to a point where I just said to myself, if I can't do anything right, I'm going to do everything wrong.
Right.
Like, if the stakes and the punishments are so high for these minuscule offenses, I will go big.
Yeah.
I will go big and not come home. Like, that's just kind of how it happened for me. And then when I was in my 20s, I was diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder. So reactive,
What's that?
yeah. So reactive attachment disorder, aka RAD, which it's not something that I have today, and I'm grateful for that. But it basically it really means like, you had no healthy attachments to the people that were charged with taking care of you.
Okay.
So you were never able to form proper bonds, either with your parents or your caretakers or whoever.
Interesting.
Yes. So because of that, you're reactive. You hyper-react to people that maybe have good intentions. And then you definitely hyper-react to people who have bad intentions. You're always in defense mode. And it put me in a situation where I was in constant fight mode.
Right.
And I hated myself. Like, I hated myself, like, more than I can even tell you. I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. I then had a baby. And I just wanted more for him. So having a baby really screwed me up. I was 19, and having him, I really thought I was going to get some clarity as to why are my parents like this?
Right,
why do my
right.
grandparents treat me like this? It didn't. It made things so much worse for me because I loved my son so much. I couldn't figure out why I was treated like
Sure.
that. Like, by my grandparents, I was kind of treated like a pound puppy. I had to be grateful for my existence all the time because they took me in when my parents didn't want me.
Was that both your grandparents or just your grandmother?
Well, my grandfather was kind of like a passive observer, really. But
Never really put a stop to it or anything like
no,
that?
nobody did.
Wow.
Nobody did. And my parents, I would long for them. I would miss them all the time. And then when we were reunited, it was wildly disappointing. Like, they just didn't want me around.
What age were you when you were reunited?
Well, so it was always off and on, but I would go weeks without seeing my mom, or I might go months without seeing my dad, and I would be so excited to see them, and they would treat me like I was a nuisance. Or, with my dad, he had a terrible girlfriend who became my stepmother at the time, and he let her dominate and take over every visitation with us. So it was just, I would long for this. I would long to reunite with my parents, and then it would just be so disappointing and disheartening. But when I had a baby, I was like, this is going to be the missing piece to the puzzle. I'm going to know why they're like this and why I feel this way. I didn't, because I loved my son so much. Like, I wanted to be better for him. I wanted to give him the parents and the life that I didn't have. At 19, at the time, I was, where the heck was I working? I think my first job when I moved back here again from Pennsylvania was working at Wyndham Falls, which is a retirement home.
Yeah.
Cleaning up, basically, elderly people's apartments, it was just gross.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was like $10.49 an hour, I
Yeah.
think, at the time. And all I kept thinking was, how am I going to elevate? How am I going to elevate? How am I going to provide a good life for my son? And how am I going to be a good person while I do it? Because to me, a good measure of whether someone is really a good person or not is how they react when their life is terrible. And I just, even though things were horrible for me, I wanted to still be a good mother, because I feel like that's the excuse everybody uses for their bad behavior is, well, my life was bad.
Sure.
Well, that happens to everybody. It happens to you 20 times a year. Your life could be bad. You don't get to be a bad parent because your life is bad.
Correct.
So I just kept trying to figure out how to level up. In that scenario, I ended up going to dental assisting school, and I was able to make enough money that I could work a 4-day-a-week job, spend more time with him, afford daycare, and my family actually did help me do that. They paid for some of my school, and it was a very stressful time, but I got through it. But the anger never went away.
Yeah.
So, I just kept getting angrier and angrier about how I was treated in my house growing up. And every instance as a parent, even to this day with my younger kids, with my 13-year-old and my 10-year-old, there will be certain things that trigger me that I'm like, this could have gone in such a different way, you know, when it happened to me, when I was her age or
that's actually
whatever.
really, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
I know someone pretty close in my life who reacts to things very similarly, where
Right.
they, and again, no names or anything like that, but they will look at their life now and not necessarily be where they want to be.
Yeah.
But they blame the external circumstance from their childhood. Is that similar concept from an emotional, not a blame, but an emotional?
I can put myself there.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
when certain things are happening, I'm like, oh, now I'm back at 1994 and I'm reliving something that I experienced. And I'm like, I just don't understand why this was so hard for anybody.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild to me. But when my son was born and I was, you know, still experiencing all this anger and I'm trying to level up and I'm trying to do all these things, and I have a family that's really, they were supportive, I guess, in their own way. But I had a family that always has 20 different reasons why you cannot do something or will talk you out of stuff, or, you know, I always felt like my mother just flat out did not want me to succeed.
Yeah.
And it was never like, my family wasn't like the F around and find out kind of family. It was like, oh, you better be careful. You know, it was always like, you're going to fail.
Right.
There's going to be a reason you're going to fail. And very fear driven, even about simple things. But I was really in such a low place emotionally. And I just had no compass as what a good parent is.
Sure.
So I was seeking out help. I was trying to get help from therapists in the area. Calling all these therapists, no one's calling me back. I was on state insurance, no one's calling me back. I threatened to drop my son off at foster care on a therapist answering machine, and that's what made them call me back.
Wow.
And this was months, and I just felt like I needed help so much, like something had to give, and nobody was giving it to me. And finally, I got somebody to call me back. And this guy was kind of like the Dr. Phil of the time, like very common sense and no nonsense. He called me up and he was like, WTF are you talking about? You're going to drop your kid off at foster care. I said, I'm not going to drop my kid off at foster care, but no one will call me back. No one will help me. And I said, no one can get help until they're in such dire straits. And that's so screwed up. I said, I'm a single mom just trying to do the best that I can. And everyone says just ask for help.
Right.
Well, that's a crock of shit.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
But this guy did help me. And he diagnosed me with RAD. At this point, I think I was 24 years old. And once I had a name to what was going on, I was like, all right. He told me, he said, this is going to be hard for you to overcome. He said, but if you do the work, you'll overcome it. And I've been in talk therapy, I think, for 20 years
You still
at
go?
this point. Oh, yeah. So I still go. It's been a lifelong journey. I don't see him anymore. I see someone else that I have been seeing. And sometimes you need more than that. So like I told you, I introduced you to Johnny Longinidis. I needed to peel the extra layer of the onion because what people don't understand is all of our experiences, some of them really make a home in our body. And spiritually, you have to do things to work that out. It's your nervous system. It's your parasympathetic system. It's a lot. It's a lot more than what's going on in your mind. It affects your whole body. And there's so many different ways to heal from it and deal with it. But as I get older and as I'm still raising my kids, I feel like you're going to discover this. You're not one parent to 3 kids.
Right.
You are 3 parents to 3 kids.
Yeah.
Because they have wildly different personalities. Like my kids are a Whitman sampler. If they, if I wasn't their mother, I would be like, they're not even related to each other. Like they are just so wild. Like if my daughter were any more laid back, she would be dead.
Yeah.
My oldest son is like just so kind and anti-drama, and he cares about working his girlfriend and playing some video games. And then my youngest son is like Dennis the Menace, like a turbo. Like I would say he's probably the most like me, but they're not the same, and they require different parents.
Sure.
So I have to wear many hats, and you do too.
Yeah.
But I feel like we all need coaches. And I have a couple different coaches. I am a coach.
Yeah.
So I feel like to get you through different points in your life, you need a coach, you need an advisor, and whether that person is a licensed clinical therapist, a yoga guru. I feel like Johnny's like more of like a shaman. I don't know if he would like that or not. But he's definitely like a healer. You need whoever you need, but no star athlete got there without a coach.
100%. 100%. And so just real quick, because I want to bridge into the coaching, real estate. What you just described, you gave me a snapshot of ages 14 to 30, if you will. And obviously now knowing you and whatnot, you have your oldest, you have 2 other children.
Yeah.
But you gave me a snapshot of what I would think is very, you were grinding. You were putting yourself through these levels of life, which I said to Johnny, I think we go through these things in life and it's just preparation for the next.
It is.
But you never gave up. And
I don't have it in me.
Yeah. So, yeah. Which is it's awesome to hear because it's a testament to coming from where you were 14 years old, dealing with the turmoil with your grandmother, your parents, the emotional disconnection that you had, trying to identify self, who you are, what your worth is throughout those ages, having a baby, but you're still grinding. What was your end goal, right? You're in real estate now, but
there is no end goal.
Okay. So not end goal. What was the next goal? I should say, instead of, so when you're grinding, going through all of this and, you being a COVID realtor, really successful COVID realtor, and now, that's within 5 years. So the 5 years before that, like, were you looking at real estate, or was it, you were able to figure out you were able to learn from the experience of not being financially savvy, and then you realize, real estate is somewhere where I can really grow
real
this.
estate was an accident.
Okay. Why?
So over COVID, I was hanging out with one of my really good friends. He owns Waterford Fitness, Mike Penta. Mm-hmm. He was taking the real estate course, and we happened to be camping with our families together. And he said, "Why aren't you taking this?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "That's crazy that it never occurred to me to sell homes, something people actually want." I sold all the things people don't want, any MLM you can think of, credit cards, vacuums, cemetery plots. And had it ever once occurred to me to sell something that sells itself, like a house, I could have been wildly successful 25 years ago at doing this. I think in my mind, like when I was doing other things, staying home to raise my kids, I was really just focused on trying to earn an income from my house. My mind didn't go outward, but as soon as Mike said that to me, I was like, duh.
Right.
Like, why don't I do that?
Yeah.
So I took the test. I interviewed some brokerages. I landed at Key because I have always done very well in niche markets, smaller markets. Plus, as far as an ego thing goes, I like to be a big fish in a small pond. So I was never going to go to a Remax. I was never going to go to a big box broker because I don't like to be just a number anywhere. I have always been kind of we have kind of a joke in the office between my broker and I that I'm a peacock. So I've always been kind of a peacock. I don't, I want to be front and center.
Sure.
I don't want to be hidden in the mix of things. So Key was a good fit for me because right off the rip in our interview, I think people were dropping F-bombs and stuff. And I was like, all right, so I can be myself here.
Yeah.
And I also knew that I had a tremendous opportunity for growth here. They were based in Rhode Island. They needed somebody to cross them over into Connecticut and build out a team. And I was like, I'm your girl for that.
Yeah.
I know how to do that. I knew I could do it. And then I would say in about 3.5 years, I brought on, I think 6 agents to the Connecticut office. And my brokers said, all right, where do you want your next office? And because I live on the Salem line of Oakdale, I was like, you know what? Why don't we look at the Colchester market? And that's how we landed here in Colchester too. So we have the Stonington office where I started, and that was just me. I was alone. There was nobody else in there.
Yeah.
And then we moved to the Colchester office because most of us do work that pushes us out Route 2 way.
Sure.
And we just saw tremendous opportunity here in Colchester because the other real estate offices here are great. They are, are fantastic colleagues to us and whatever, but it's been really the same 2-3 brokerages for decades here. So I personally felt we would do well because people want choice.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we're great team players, even from broker to broker. We're good colleagues to our competitors, and I did not feel that it would be a contentious move.
Sure. Do you think your ability to tap into a deeper purpose of why you want to achieve what you've achieved in your life in every level, from selling vacuums to cemetery plots to dental hygienists to you excel and you wanted better? Do you think that's something people can tap into generally? Like anything, there's a saying that you can't be anything, but you can do anything, right? Like I can't go and get in shape to be a professional baseball player at 36. I couldn't do it at 30. I couldn't do it at 25.
Yeah.
But if I set my mind into something, I could do it. Case in point, podcast, bowling, piano, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do you think that ability is there for everybody, and why don't people tap into it?
So number one, I think for a lot of us, it's a spiritual thing. Like all the things that I've done, I've been compelled to do, called to do. It's an urge that I can't fight. Like I was laughing with Johnny yesterday. I just said, wouldn't it be nice to be the kind of person who just didn't feel compelled to do these things, or didn't push the limits or wasn't driven? Like it just seems like bliss, right? To like be okay with working where you work and whatever. It seems peaceful. There's no peace for the inspired. There's no peace for the driven. There's no peace for perseverance, really. Yeah. I mean, it's just a nagging thing that keeps driving you. Do I think people can tap into it? Yes, I do. I think they have to want it, number one. And they cannot be overcome by fear. So you have to break the fear barrier or the grief barrier. So for me, it was both. So I had a lot of grief associated with my family and, even separating from my family or things in that realm. I had to get on the other side of the grief so that I could overcome that. I have always had to get on the other side of fear. What if I fail? Well, what if you fail?
Right.
What will happen?
Right.
Nothing. You just do something and fail again, and then you fail 10 more times until you succeed at it. Some people don't have the chops or the stomach to do the failing, and some people can't overcome the fear of rejection or the perception of how other people view them. But at the end of the day, that's what coaches are for.
Sure.
Coaches are to help you overcome this. And that's what I do in my coaching, but I also help people come up with a clear plan. No one ever gave me a plan. I had to F around and find out on every freaking level, And it was time consuming and it was frustrating. It still is. I'm still FAFO, constantly. If anybody had ever given me a clear-cut plan, some of it I probably would have followed, but, my instinct is always to find my own way. So I know what works, but some people really just need a plan, or they get so overwhelmed by the anxiety surrounding whatever their circumstances are. Say, you want to leave your spouse, or you're in financial hot water, or whatever it is. They get so consumed over the fear and anxiety of the situation that they can't confront it and just look at it. And a lot of times, if you just look at it, you can see this isn't as bad as you think it is, and you can overcome it that way. But half the battle is just showing up.
Right.
If you just show up to do whatever it is you want to do, you're already halfway there.
I read a book called Outwitting the Devil. It's a great book. I've said it probably 4 or 5 episodes in a row and a bunch of other episodes previously. But one of the things that's written in the book is that a person with out a plan, but has definiteness on what they want to achieve is more likely to succeed it, as opposed to somebody with this rigid plan and no definiteness.
I agree, because the plan reveals itself. So like, coaching, I didn't really have a plan for coaching. I just started coaching people who were coming to me for advice. Now I have a coaching plan.
Right.
Ultimately, I want to be a paid keynote speaker. I don't really have a plan for that. I'm just going to start doing keynotes, and then I'm hoping somebody will pay me.
Yeah. So let's because we got about 10 minutes left. I know we got a hard stop here. What so with keynote speaking, give me have you done one yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's interesting, because I also could see myself doing something similar. When I was started going to church when I was 16 years old. I got invited to go by a baseball player teammate of mine who actually was on my podcast. He's actually a evangelist.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know who Rajay Davis is.
No.
Rajay Davis is he was a former Major League Baseball player, 14-year career, and he's from New London. And he would work out with my buddy Jose, who he'd be like, "Yo, do you want to come work out with me and Rajay?" So yeah, cool. And I was like, yeah, he's a Major League Baseball player. I'm gonna work out with him. But it introduced me to the faith of Christianity. And coincidentally, I ended up ministering and opening up certain sermons and speaking in front of youth groups and leading my team every baseball game in prayer. And speaking in a motivational way was something for me that always filled my cup.
Yep.
Right. With you, what was that first one like for you?
So it wasn't motivational.
It was or was not?
Was not.
Okay.
I was asked by a competing brokerage to do a presentation on how I use AI in real estate.
Okay.
So it was my first journey of really how to assemble a good presentation, an engaging presentation. It went really well. We did get into some motivational things, like I shared my prospecting secrets with them and stuff like that. But it was not an adapt and overcome type of keynote.
Sure.
I do want to do some adversity speaking and things like that, but I will speak on anything anybody finds helpful, that they think that I do. And I'm always willing to help someone. As far as I am not a gatekeeper, I don't think that it's a good business tactic to be a gatekeeper.
I agree.
I think you get back 10 times what you share versus gatekeeping. And at the end of the day, gatekeeping is stupid in this day and age because we have so many social platforms. We have YouTube to teach us how to do anything. So it just says that you're unapproachable, unfriendly, and abrasive.
Yep.
If you won't help out a friend, a colleague, or whatever, figure out how to get to the level you got. And it takes nothing from you to help another person. I have been helped a million times along my journey. I did not get here by myself, and I don't want to send the message that I did. I have gotten an overwhelming amount of help from strangers, from colleagues, from friends that care about me, from some of my family members. Anything from advice to showing me how to do something to, encouraging me, saying, you can do this. The pivotal moment in my life was the first time I rebelled against what my family was telling me, and I was successful at it. And then once I realized you don't go to people who have not done what you're trying to do for advice, that was it for me.
Yeah.
I only went to the people who have done what I'm going to do. So, if you want to buy a home, you do not ask someone who's not a homeowner how to buy a home.
Right.
If you want to invest your money financially in the S&P, you do not talk to somebody about investing that does not invest their money.
Right.
They're going to come up with 25 reasons to scare you into not doing something because they're afraid to do it themselves.
Sure.
So once I have figured that out, it was sky is the limit. And now that I'm 44 years old, I know I can do anything. And for us, the older we get, we haven't reached the height of our success yet.
Right.
I'm 44. I'm due to reach the height of my success in the next 10 years. So that's really kind of wild when you think about it.
Love it. And that's why I said to Johnny the other day that I've grown, I'm 35, I'll be 36 in August. And I've grown to realize that life in my 20s was just preparation for your 30s. But when you're in your 20s, you feel like, oh my God, this is stressful. The world, the business, work, career, significant other, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You get really anxious about what you almost limit yourself in life and in those.
Well, society teaches us that it's never enough. We're never doing enough. We're never at the right place. We're always behind. Social media is
100%,
the worst for that.
Yeah.
And it creates a world of envy.
Comparison.
I always encourage people, if they're feeling jealous of a coworker or even a friend or whatever, get off social media.
Yeah.
It's not real. Take a break. Use it for what it is. Use it for the free advertising. Use it as a platform to inspire people. But if it's bringing you down, then it's time for a break, and it's not real. And you are always exactly where you're supposed to be.
It's so funny you say that, because I'm not like a super high strung anxiety person, but I would be on social media quite a bit, and I would follow a bunch of different things: sports, politics, business, news, economy, all that stuff. Right. And the second I started this podcast, that has come down, because I don't really have the bandwidth to be working on this, posting this, promoting this, promoting my business, and then also go through the scrolling of trying to get all that information.
No doom scrolling.
So now my anxiety level has come down, because I'm not looking at all this other noise, if you will.
Yeah,
when it comes
and it is noise.
It's a lot of noise. I know we got to wrap up here in a bit. I feel like there was just so much more we could have talked about, and we didn't even unpack.
I'll come
some of the
back
stuff.
on.
Yeah, we'll do it again. But let's what are you working on? What do you see next for you? Business, 5 years. Where can people find you?
So people can find me on Instagram at Tara Crossley Realtor, and Facebook, same place, and TaraCrossleyRealtor.com. And you can always find me at Key Real Estate at 108 Norwich Avenue in Colchester. What am I working on? Myself.
Yeah.
No, I am working on developing a good, strong foundation of speech and presentation delivery. I joined Toastmasters International.
Nice. My buddy's my good friend David.
Yep. I go to the Mystic branch. I like the Mystic Aquarium Toastmasters because I do feel if you're going to do something, do it well. I want to be able to deliver keynotes very confidently. I want to be able to come across very professionally. I want to get rid of the ums and the so's and so I'm going to practice. And then I'm also just working on continuing to deliver a very high level of service to my clients. I absolutely love being a realtor. I'll always be a realtor. I'll probably be one of those realtors that's, 80 something years old with my little white Porsche because I enjoy it and I enjoy the relationship of it, and I enjoy helping people through their journey, whatever it is. Happy times, sad times. We see a lot of different situations in real estate. And that's what I'm doing. I'm leading my team. I absolutely love leading the team here in the Connecticut office, alongside with our brokers, Dave and Alan. I feel like we have a very rich experience here, and we're a very agent-centered brokerage, and we are for agents, and we really want the best for everybody that comes to our brokerage. So kind of just honing in on what the agents need at any given moment and being able to provide that, and being a good mom. Yeah. Awesome. I always just want to be plugged into my kids no matter what. And I would say in my life, my kids are number one, my career is number two, and then everything else falls into place.
Love it.
And you're never, ever, ever going to go wrong by being there for your kids ever.
Love that.
So I'm very close to my kids, and I feel very blessed. I have a wonderful relationship with all three of them, but particularly, I think everybody worries about adult kids. I'm like best friends with my 23-year-old. He lives on his own. I'm super proud of him. We're in contact all the time, and I just couldn't be more grateful than that. Yeah. And I start my day every single day with gratitude, and that's my recommendation for anybody who wants to do anything. Start with gratitude.
Love it. Love it. Well, listen, Tara, I appreciate it. Obviously, I'm looking forward to the relationship that now you and I have created for multiple different facets. I think this is
so fun.
Great. So I'm looking forward to getting this out, and we'll wrap up with that.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.